Welcome everybody to a Salty Chillers Entertainment Podcast. This is Hero Darkness.
Don't watch it.
Which numbers?
Valentine.
In today's episode, we will be talking about the work environment and how it's changing, and also why it's important for everyone to find a job that they can be happy in. So to start off, why do we need to adapt to the work environment?
In order to survive in life, you have to be able to be adaptable. Whether it's like, going to the grocery store or like doing your actual job, like being adaptable is what helps you survive and pay bills and, achieve stuff.
Okay.
Well, I mean, just being adaptable is something that everyone should know how or be able to do. If you can't be adaptable in a simple workplace, if something was to change, then either you're clearly not fit to do said job, or you as a person aren't prepared to do what you're doing. Is just going from day-to-day life and or at a job, things tend to change at any given time, and you have to be able to adjust to it.
And would you say that
If you can't-
the adjusting would also include things that you have to do on the fly? Like you're at work and something comes up and you have to be able to adjust to that quick?
Essentially, like for instance, if for me, I work at a grocery store. If someone was to fall and hit their head, you have to be able to adapt and get the proper help. For one, you would call, 911 and, get an ambulance over here so we can get this taken care of and things like that. Which actually, there's been cases like that where we've had to call the ambulance and over just different things, not necessarily that one specific, incident. But there's been a lot of reasons where we had to adapt on the fly and be able to get things taken care of in a fairly quick time. Whether, just being something serious or something small, we have to be able to adjust to it.
Yeah, keep talking, old man.
Because the work environment's constantly changing. Even just in your regular job that you do, there's things that come up that you have to be able to adapt to. Rich, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts? I think what you guys have been making are quite valid points. I wouldn't be able to adapt and go from there. Because that is something we really gotta learn to do, because adapting is something important in the workforce.
And you can even take a look at history in not just work environment or workforce. In history, the humans, species, us as a species, we've adapted to the various environments that we're in. So adapting is kind of a natural thing that we do. We also have to be okay with the fact that it can change. And when it does, we don't need to freak out about it. Just breathe, calm down, and go with the flow. Because if you don't breathe and calm down and go with the flow, that's where the panic and everything else comes in. And that leads into the next part, which I believe will lead to another better discussion, is how does technology affect the work environment? We'll discuss that, and then I'll have a follow-up question.
Well, if you look at now versus how things were back then, you didn't have all this technology that we do to make things easier. Take the cashiers, for instance. They have like an actual register where they have able to ring things up and things like that and make the job so much easier. Back then, you didn't have all that. You've had to do it by hand, and if you messed up, well, you would have had to, stop and figure it out. Or even if you had to take something off. it's made things a little easier. At the same time, it can be very complicated if it decides it wants to glitch out or spaz out in anything of that nature, which I've had to deal with that a lot, and it's very frustrating, especially if the system itself goes down.
Yeah, I had an experience at work where the technology that we're using, or not technology, but the credit card system went down. And because the credit card system went down, we had to have everyone fill out the old knuckle rollers paper and jot down their information, just their name and credit card info, so that way we can, when it get back up running, do it and charge them for their account. But we said, hey, if you have cash, this will be a lot faster process. And I was amazed.
And or easier.
And a lot easier, true. And it was amazing to see how many people were like, oh yeah, I got cash, here we go. And others like, I don't have cash. Okay, then this is what we have to do.
It's funny how many people actually don't have cash that I see them come in my store.
I know for me in the hair industry, it's more like online check-ins. Like now, before, like, you would have to like either set an appointment, or in the type of salon I'm in, the type of barbershop I'm in, you just walk in. But we have an online check-in system, and so you get the app on your phone and you click on the app and it shows our location, and you click on the location and you put in your information and it puts you on the list. But a lot of people who are older don't necessarily like that because they don't know how to download the app on their phone, so they don't know how to check in online. And so every time they come in, if we have a wait, it's because 3 people checked in online. And sometimes when we're busy, they have to wait, and then somebody who checked in online comes in and gets seated before they do, and they get really, really mad. And you have to kind of adapt to it, but also still have compassion for like those who do not want to adapt to it. Like the people who will never use self-checkout lines in grocery stores. Like the people who are like hardcore, like, I want a person checking me out. Like, you just have to kind of be adaptable.
Yeah.
In all honesty, you really need to learn how to adapt, because by not adapting, you're really putting yourself and the customers at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and depending on where you work at, you hurt business.
And that is true.
For anything in retail, business is everything.
Business is everything for a lot of businesses. And I can even talk about how adapting to the technology changes at Taco Bell, because I worked there for a time and I was there when Taco Bell switched over and created a mobile app for everybody, where everybody can download the Taco Bell mobile app, and now you can place your orders online. And as a worker there, there's no warning when that person comes in. It's bam, there it is, especially in drive-thru. And Taco Bell that I was working at, drive-thru, we had to get them out. The preferred time was 1 minute and 9 seconds. Anything more than that, you're taking too long. And that really had to force everyone to adapt. So if you're working on the drive-thru line, and even if you're working on the inside line, where you make the food for the people who come into the store, sometimes you have to say, hey, I got this order. I need you to stop what you're doing right now and help me make this drive-thru order so we can get them out, so we can keep that time down low.
Yeah.
And so not only did it force us workers on the line to adapt, but it forced everybody else in the store to adapt to make that happen faster.
Ikora, you were right about the taken in here. I expected as much.
And as Val was talking about, same thing with her work. Those who decide, you know what, I'm gonna make a reservation online for myself for my haircut, makes it easier for them to get seen and get it done. There's some businesses that are doing the same thing. They're implementing online and make your reservation the day prior or in advance, and then you show up and check in and you get seen a lot sooner, a lot faster versus otherwise.
Yeah, because you're already scheduled in for it.
Right.
And then another
Versus
thing,
going in there and not having anything.
and then another thing that has helped, I said this has helped out the movie business a whole lot at the movie theaters, is being able to order your ticket online, whether it's through that movie theater's website or a third party, has allowed to remove a lot of the lines down for opening day for movies.
Yeah.
Because now you're not spending time in line waiting for that and hoping that there still be seats available for the movie that you want to go see opening day.
It's just there and you can see because it tells you like how many are left or if it's out.
Right, like at Penn Square in Oklahoma City, like you reserve your seat. Like you even can pick out your seat, and that is your seat in the entire theater. And I think that, you know, like when I used to take my son, especially when I was first, you know, going through the divorce process and the custody battle with my son, I would take him to movies so we would, you know, kind of be distracted and be away from all that and just get lost in the story. And what attracted me to Penn Square was that I could get on my phone on the Fandango app and I could click on the seat and I could reserve my seat, and that would be our seats, you know, so I wouldn't have to worry about having to get there early and trying to entertain, like at that point he was 6 years old, a 6-year-old, while we're waiting for the, you know, even the ads to come on the movie screen. Like there was none of that. It was just very easy. You just went in, you sat down, and you watched the movie.
And that's one thing where it's not so much you as a worker adapting, but that's one of us as the consumers adapting to it. And being able to adapt is a necessary skill because we don't know what's going to happen in our work environment and what we're going to have to do to adapt. I mean, I'm sure Rich has some experiences at the places that he's worked where he had to adapt to what was going on, especially with the technology changes, because I know he has experience with McDonald's. I don't know if McDonald's has a mobile app or not, so I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, that mobile app, when it first came out, it was... At first it was interesting, you know, knowing that stuff that was there. But all in all, after we got moving on that stuff, it actually made it a little smoother because we can if the difference when we got the Autorongo with Autoron, it was then more numb, but adapting to it was quite easy. It was simple. Okay, they came in, they said they'd have this, and we then went in and made the order, brought it out to them, and or give it to the drive-thru or in the lobby, and it just the lines been quite easy. But it was a quick, easy adaptation. Not much training was involved with it. Just, hey, this is how you do it to get it up, trained up, and you get to go.
And that leads into the next part, you know, how does the technology affect the work environment? It affects it in a lot of ways where we need to be able to be a quick learner on adapting to it. Whether it's learning a new POS system for those who are in retail and fast food, or being able to adapt to the app changes or the way your business take orders and reservations to be able to adapt to that. So that way when it happens, you know how it goes. Or even if it's just a busy day at work and technology goes down, being able to adapt to what we like to call the old school method these days, or
He's referencing no fewer than 5 of his own
and being able
books
to
on
adapt to
pyramid.
that and use that.
I'm not sure which I can use to guide you. Existential Tyranny Part 1.
And so
Negation and identity
why
affects
do we
transformation
need to
mechanisms.
adapt?
This is why I prefer applied research.
Well, kind of like what we said at the beginning, everything's changing. This world is constantly changing, which forces us to adapt on a day-to-day basis.
I think with the way things are moving entirely, like they're moving really fast. The more we get into the future, like, you know, technology and society, and I'm seeing things in my lifetime that I never thought I saw. You know, if you'd asked me in the 90s as like a preteen girl, I'd be like, a little computer that like you carry around in your pocket? Like, really? You know, because like I come from the era of, like, when I was a kid, I played Wolfenstein and like Oregon Trail on this like big old chunky computer. And the fact that like,
Good old dial-up just to
yeah, like
Good old block
I had
computers.
to load MS-DOS and then I had to put the right code in so that I could go into the game. That's how like my first gaming experience was that and the original Nintendo. Like that
Good
came out in
old
my lifetime.
Minesweeper. And Solitaire.
I remember coming home. This is just kind of a funny story. I remember coming like down from Christmas morning. We had already unwrapped all the presents. It was like the day after, so it was really early. And I come down and I hear my Nintendo on and I hear Tetris playing. And my dad is sitting in the middle of the living room on my Nintendo on my Tetris game. And I come down and I go, Dad, what are you doing? Because I'm like second grade
I'm
at the
playing
time.
Tetris!
Yeah, and he was like, I bought this for you, and it's for Christmas, but dang it, I'm going to play Tetris in the morning with my coffee. And I was like, okay. And I think I went to go play with my dollhouse, because I was like, I am not having any of that early in the morning. It was so funny. But like, that's my generation, and now coming from that to like, you know, like today we played Monster Hunter and we like all helped each other out. We like met people who are like cross states, you know, like, and cross countries. That's like, it's crazy. We have to be adaptable to that.
I mean,
We
just take
can't
a look
not.
at us. I mean, some of us are East Coast and some of us are mid-US. And look what we're doing.
Exactly.
We do this on a weekly basis and other things like that. We figure out what's right for everyone and we adjust to it and or adapt. It's whatever floats your boat.
I mean, it's the same thing like working with the work schedules that we all have, and we all adapt and change that. And so just being able to adapt, I feel like it's a basic human thing that we do, but sometimes I feel like we take it for granted, or we get so used to things not changing that when it does, we don't know what to do. And so what do we need to do then when those moments of the unknown pops up? How can we handle those moments, especially where it feels stressful?
I have an idea and it's probably not the proper, but just wing it.
I mean,
People go ahead and wing it, we'll say. But it's
Us known as
sometimes it's
improvise, for those of you who don't know. I improvise a lot sometimes on a day-to-day basis while at work, especially if, oh hey, this is changing, okay, how do I need to go about doing this to make it effective and not take all day to do?
I mean, it was like the scheduling conflict yesterday. Like, we were supposed to put up this podcast yesterday, but it was my son's, it's my son's birthday. So we adapted and we did it tonight.
We do things where it's convenient for everybody and not just, one person. And I had this saying, if everyone can't be there to do it, depending on what it is, we'll reschedule it. It's not a big deal for a lot of us.
And as we stated when we first started out, I mean, as far as us being gamers, we're casual, but we've also set a rule amongst ourselves that if we all aren't in agreement, or if we all can't be there, then we'll wait. And as we discussed, we were making sure that we'll let you guys in the know who followed us.
We're getting better with that.
Especially on Twitter, that hey, it's gonna be late. It's gonna be later than normal. It's okay. It's nothing life altering. It's just scheduling or things have come up where not all of us can be on, and we want all of us to be on. And yes, we've had a couple times with Red Renegade on, but we asked him, "Do you want to be a part of this?" And if he doesn't want to be a part of it, then we're not going to force him to be a part of it, but he knows he's always welcome to come in and be part of the discussion. And we want everyone to be comfortable with us.
Yeah.
And so we are always changing and adapting to things amongst ourselves and making things work. And that's just not with technology, that's just life. So how can we learn how to adapt? I don't believe there's a set way to know how to adapt. What have you guys found is the best way that you've adapted?
It just becomes natural, honestly. Almost by instinct for some people.
Being flexible, like just knowing that sometimes you don't have control over your situation and it is what it is, and just being open to the possibilities of what has to happen after that, like postponing the podcast, or calming down a customer that's really upset about online check-in, and
I've had to deal with a handful of those people.
Right, yeah,
things got out of hand and I had to adjust and figure out, okay, how do I fix this and not make things worse?
If you have a customer service or a public human population job, then you get it. Adaptability is like your middle name, because you have to. Because you have to be flexible enough to deal with the crazies, but also deal with the people who are calm and chill, and deal with the other people who are going through something that day, just being flexible.
And that there is important, be able to be flexible. That's one thing I learned with a couple of different jobs I work. You have to learn to be flexible. If not, it doesn't work out for you. It's just you end up doing things that doesn't work out very well for you.
Now, what you guys would do in a work setting where you and a coworker, the two of you aren't getting along, where you find that you clash a lot, and sometimes it's just personality differences, or it could just be ideology stuff, or it could just be the way the person just comes across and the person just rubs you the wrong way. How do you handle when there's a difference between you and a coworker?
Well, I personally haven't had that issue, but I've dealt with one person where they sat and... Okay, where I work at, we have people that specifically wrap the meat and restock certain shelves, and then we have another one that, kind of sits at the counter. Well, those two were having conflicting issues and things like that. Well, the one that normally works at the counter, since he can be able to leave, and the one doing the wrap, he can't necessarily. Anyway, well, he specifically sat and took care of things that I myself would normally take care of. and I pretty much sat at the counter. He avoided being at the counter at all costs just to keep from having more issues than there needed to be. Just until things kind of settled down, or both people weren't agitated with each other.
Osiris is concerned. You don't have to. But if you go in there, make sure the Cabal
So that coworker removed themselves from the situation. Just
Until
to keep the
everything
pace.
settled down, yeah. And it wasn't so, say, tense, I should say.
So one advice that you give is remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah, distance
or from that
yourself.
person.
And if there's an issue, talk to it with your boss and figure something out that way. That way, they can keep you busy doing one thing. That way you two aren't in the same area and you can pretty much get a clear head. And then reapproach the situation and, figure out what the issue was and, talk it over and get over it.
Well, I think that's interesting because I am in a situation where there is a coworker at my job and we can't escape each other because we are on a team of 5 stylists to do a full-time schedule. And we're talking 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays, and 10 to 6 on Sundays. Like, we're open 7 days a week. So we're on a skeleton crew, as you would have it. And this one particular coworker and me are like oil and water. Like, I don't know if there's anything in the world that I can say to her to make her like me. And I don't think there's anything in the world she could say to me to make me like her. We just have very, very distinct personality issues. But we have to close with each other once a week. And so it has taken major adaptability on both our parts to be able to be professional and to work together and not let our dislike of each other affect the money that we're going to make for our family. Because in the end, she's a single mom. She's trying to work hard for her family. I have a family to support myself, so I am working really hard, and we both understand that no matter what we feel for each other, this job comes first. So we just don't talk about it, and I am absolutely okay with that. And I think she's okay with that too. We just work on working together and being as cordial and as light-hearted conversational as we can be. And that's what works for us. I've never had somebody in a work environment where I've had a problem with and it didn't affect either mine or their income. But with her, she's a grown woman, and so am I. So we understand the importance of the job, and we don't let it affect us.
Being adults about it.
Yeah, being really okay, I really do not like you, but that doesn't matter in the whole scheme of things, so let's just not even talk about it. Let's just be nice to all these customers, get our tips, get our money, and go home.
Gotta get the job done somehow.
Yes. And I'm a hairstylist, in case I haven't made that clear. Job, money, tips, I'm a hairstylist. Barbershop. Yep.
Is there a barbershop quartet? I mean, I guess that's a discussion for another day.
But needless to say,
Sometimes when you are in an environment where you can't escape, like in Valentine's case, sometimes it's finding the neutral ground. Finding what you can talk about, finding what works for the two of you, so the two of you can keep the peace. And sometimes you're gonna have people that are gonna have opposing views, and sometimes just finding a common ground is more important than trying to say, this is awesome and you need to be this. Rather just find the common ground and build off of that. I have found that to work and help me out is when I find what's me and the person I'm having conflicts with, what we have in common, and which topics trigger the contention, and avoid those topics. Because there's no situations that you can't just be at opposite ends of the store.
Yeah. You know, it just all depends on what you're doing and where you're at.
Right. In my case, it's like a few feet away from each other in a salon.
Yeah, and that can be a small issue.
Yeah, I'm just glad that we handle it like adults, and I wish that more people would be able to do that. In my position, I've been there so long, I've seen people come and go, and usually it's because they cannot adapt. They cannot, like, do the bigger thing and just ignore some of the issues and get on with their job. And eventually they weed themselves out because it's kind of survival of the fittest out here, you know?
Next thing to do is, if you've done everything you can and you talk to the manager and things aren't working out between the person, what's the next thing to do? You are unhappy in your job. Do you keep yourself there because you're unhappy but it brings in the money? Or do you do yourself a favor and get out? And I'm talking, you tried everything, you talked to the management, you talked over the person, you tried to do everything to maintain that peace, but nothing seems to work, or you're just not happy in your daily work routine. What's your suggestions?
Well, for me, it really all depends on where you're working at and how the situation is. For me, I used to be a manager. Eventually got to the point where I was becoming excessively irritated with another manager, mainly because of how she started talking to me. It was disrespectful. I didn't like it. Well, there comes a time when the store manager himself said, "Hey, there's a position in so-and-so department. Would I be interested?" Without a second's hesitation, I said, "Yes, I will." So he, pretty much told me to start on Monday. Well, for me, doing that, it was a lot less stressful. I mean, again, the weekends are still a little bad, but it's nothing compared to how it was before. That, and it's also more beneficial for me because I'm making more than what I was. So, just changing where I'm working at in a store can make things a little bit better. Now I know that's probably not the case for a lot of things, because a lot of jobs don't have that flexibility in where you work at. At that point, I would almost say keep the current job you have, and then probably find somewhere else that will be more beneficial to you. And until you find one, you just have to push through it and don't do anything stupid.
I think that a lot of people would benefit from pausing for a second and thinking about what they need to do. I know that if you work for a franchise or a chain or a corporation, usually you can transfer. Especially if you call your HR department and tell them why you want to transfer. And divulge to them what's going on, and sometimes they'll have you and that person sit down and try to work things out, and when a conclusion can't be reached, they would rather move you than lose you. And so that's always an option. But like, you know what? I've had jobs where I have been making tons of money, but so unhappy with how I was making it and where I was going and how there wasn't a ceiling. And you know, I've learned to stop and make a plan of action, and if I do want to quit my job, I give my 2 weeks and I look for another one. And I try to make sure I have one lined up, because you never know, you know, like another job could be another possibility for renewed friendships and maybe a boss that's like more fair, or, you know, just a non-toxic relationship altogether. So sometimes it's okay to bail. Like, I've done it before and I'm okay, you know.
Because when you do that and you're being interviewed and they ask you about your last job and why you left and that, you can say me and the environment were working together. And if they ask you to go into more detail, you can, and they'll probably do their best to make sure that you stay in the company. Because I was in a similar situation. I did not like where I was working at, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna put in 2 weeks notice. I'm not happy, I'm stressing out, life isn't going very well with me at this job. Yeah, I need money, but I also need my happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Rich
I mean,
have any thoughts on this topic as well?
I know, with me, you know, talking about this and that, I know when I was working at said company, you know, well, I'm gonna take a step back. No, not taking a step back, said company. I remember in high school, when I was in a group and that, there was some people I didn't get along with, and some people I did, and it can sometimes make it frustrating to do things, but at the same time I realize it is like, should I stick it out or should I keep moving? Should I adapt or just not care? And that's when I realized, like, if I can deal with it, I can adapt to the situation around me, and I can keep doing what I've been enjoying instead of just pushing it all off to the side. That's what my view is. Like, if you know you can handle and adapt to the situation, stick with what you're doing. If you realize it's not you, you're doing something not you're supposed to be doing, don't do it. Find a different thing, like what Val said, like what Mila said.
Val, you had a comment you made before I interrupted.
You've activated more lasers.
Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. I was gonna say that the franchise that I'm working for, I've actually gotten fired from, and it was a year, and it was in this in Oklahoma City. We have a ritzy part of the neighborhood. It's called Edmond, and I have never been able to cut hair in Edmond because the moms are just too hovering, the guys are just too picky, and they don't tip. I don't make any money up there.
They don't know what they want.
Yeah, they don't know what they want, and then some of them expect a $65 fade for, you know, $14, and it's just not going to happen. And so I actually got fired up there because there was somebody who was upset with one of my cuts, and it wasn't that the cut was bad, it was just that they didn't like it, and they complained to my manager, and my manager, you know, said, you know, I'm gonna have to let you go. And I said, okay, you know, and I then worked at the same grocery store that Salt works at for a little bit, and and then I applied at another franchise with another franchise owner, and they looked into my past. They looked into why, that happened. But thankfully, because of lack of interest on the other party's part, they decided to hire me. And that was, this is my 3rd year with that same shop. So it can be done. You can, like, go to a place that's better than the last, even if you get fired. It can happen. I'm saying don't give up.
Don't give up on your dream.
Right.
Yeah, and
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
and that's something that's important is if you have a dream, go for it. If your dream is to be the best in your field, and you want to be at the top of your field, you're going to have things that are going to come your way, and you're going to have to adapt, whether it's adapting in your schooling, whether it's adapting in the workforce, whatever it is. You go after that dream. Now, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have people that are going to say no, but listen to what the people are saying, because they do have the best interests at heart. Because sometimes you need to look beyond a certain time period. If you're going to take a risk, take a look at everything overall of what that risk is going to include. And can you take this risk and still be okay with yourself afterwards? And if I want to do this thing, can I do it another way that I can still end up on top, so if things do go sideways, I am not hurting myself years later when I finally found my job, when I finally am happy with what I'm doing. Because you don't want to be happy with what you're doing and still be paying yourself back for decisions that you didn't think all the way through, or you didn't listen to everything correctly from people who are trying to help you out. Because you gotta live your life. You have to be able to adapt. And I feel like what we discuss here a lot is what can we do to help everyone around us become the best version of themselves. I feel like that's a lot of our messages come around to. What do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree on that point?
I agree.
Yeah. I wouldn't see anything to disagree with.
I agree. I was just talking to a friend about this today, and like, she was kind of discouraged about something someone said to her, and I don't think that that should be in the way of your dreams. Like, if you want to be, say something crazy, like an actor, and people tell you, oh, you're never gonna make it, like, you shouldn't even try. Like, do you understand how many celebrities come out of, like, the millions that are in Hollywood? You shouldn't let that pull you down. If that is your passion, if that's what you want to do, you do it. You be the best that you can be in the field that you choose. Because in the end, and I will tell you as an older individual, like, you want to look back and say that you spent your years doing something you love, not following another path just because someone tried to discourage you one time. People are people. It's just their opinions. Like, you do you.
And that's the important thing, is that you do you do what is you. Now, I know some of us like to take challenges, and that's fine. But take a look at the challenge and realize, you know what, this challenge is going to be too big. You know what, I'm better off not taking this challenge and come back another time when I'm more prepared.
Don't bite off more than you can chew, essentially.
I personally have stories that, or experience that I can tell you about that. That's for another time.
As always.
About being reasonable with what you want to go and do, and still being happy with yourself.
Yeah.
And so, in closing, learn to adapt. If you feel like that you struggle with adapting, let us know. Maybe we can give you some tips, or maybe some of the things that we said in here can help you adapt. one good advice I can give is take a moment, step back, and breathe. Find yourself a quiet space real quick for a few moments to breathe, so that way you can adapt to what's happening in your work environment, and then get right back at it. Even if it means that you have to come to excuse like why you have to go to the bathroom so you can breathe, and then get right back at it. What are they going to do?
Sometimes all it takes is just a step away and just take a breather.
And that right there is more than enough sometimes for you to be calm and calm down and to adapt to what's going on. And if you find yourself struggling to adapt, maybe break down the process, break down where you're struggling at, and ask for help. Because we say it a lot, I know I do. You're not weak for asking
We're
for
making
help.
good progress.
You're a better
but
person
taken
because
energy
of it.
readings are still off the charts.
There must be a source. The Cabal hurt us, Guardian, but the Taken could ruin the EDZ forever. Put an end to this.
Does anyone else have any thoughts before we close up? Any final thoughts?
I do not.
Just be the best human you can be.
Just think about who you are and
If
your
the
decision
Taken
you're gonna
wanted to
make,
poison
and
the entire dead zone, this
if you
was
don't
the
think
place
in
to
depth
do
to
it.
what's happening around you,
They didn't
find a
make it by
better
accident.
place to go to
They
if need
succeed.
be.
We won't have room on the farm. We're still treating wounded from the Red War.
This has been a Salty Cheers Entertainment Podcast. This has been Hero Darkness.
So logic.
Fish numbers.
Valentine!
And as always, stay salty.